Alcatraz. Maximum security, escape-proof, no way out. All phrases used to describe a small island only a mile and a half from the San Francisco mainland. The rock was thought to be inescapable, but new studies and independent research have pointed to the fact that on the night of June 11, 1962, 3 men escaped Alcatraz. The island, originally called Alcatraz, was founded in 1775 by the Spanish explorer Juan Manuel de Ayala. It isn't until 75 years later that Alcatraz gets noticed by the United States government. As a result of the acquisition of California from the Mexican-American War in 1848 and the start of the California Gold Rush the following year, San Francisco experienced rapid growth. So in 1850, a presidential order by President Millard Fillmore set aside the island to be used as a military reserve. In 1853, the United States Corps of Engineers began fortifying the island with some 75 cannons, making it the most heavily fortified military base on the West Coast. With the coming of the Civil War in the early 1860s, Alcatraz began to transition from a military base to a military prison. The suspension of habeas corpus by President Lincoln in 1863 allowed the judicial system to imprison anyone without trial. The Union-controlled government in San Francisco began to use Alcatraz as a military prison, housing Confederate sympathizers and soldiers alike. After the First Battle of Bull Run and the start of the Civil War, Alcatraz was looked at as one of the Union's most valuable military positions in the Pacific Front. After a Union victory in the Civil War and the reinstallation of the rebellious states, Alcatraz's military value began to diminish. For the next 100 years, Alcatraz would be used solely as a prison, and in the year 1933, Alcatraz was turned over to the Federal Bureau of Prisons to house some of America's most dangerous criminals, such as Al Capone, George Machine Gun Kelly, Alvin Karpis, and Arthur Doc Barker. But how did all these notorious dangerous criminals get under one roof? The Rock was at first an experiment by J. Edgar Hoover and the Federal Bureau of Prisons to combat the crime and violence of post-Prohibition America. Without psychologists, teachers, or social workers on staff, Alcatraz never had any intention of rehabilitation. Instead, Alcatraz adhered to the three-pronged ethic of incapacitating, deterring, and punishing. This is most clearly seen in the rules the occupants had to follow. Rules like Regulation Number 5. You are entitled to food, clothing, and shelter. Anything else that you get is a privilege. Difficult to manage or particularly dangerous prisoners were sent to Alcatraz as a kind of last resting place. Break the rules and you go to prison. Break the prison rules and you go to Alcatraz.
Let's say you're going to try it anyway. First, you've got to get out of the cell. Each bar has 6 hard, smaller bars set in a steel tube with extra steel poured in. And there ain't no way to turn it out either. Shit. This island is solid rock. See that water? It's over a mile swim to land. The currents make it seem like 10. And the water's so cold, it will numb your arms in a matter of minutes. And even if you are a good swimmer, man, you won't have the time to make it. There are 12 counts every day. Sometimes I think that's all this shithole is.
Alcatraz was thought to be impenetrable, the prison to end all prisons, the United States' first maximum security prison from which none could escape. But on the night of June 11, 1962, 3 men, Franklin Morris, Clarence Anglin, and John Anglin, successfully escaped the rock. But how did they do it? Frank Lee Morris, the brains of the operation. Convicted of his first crime at the young age of 13, Frank was destined to be the one to escape Alcatraz. With the supposed IQ of 133, Morris was a borderline genius. He was often described as one by prison guards during his tour of the American justice system. After escaping nearly every prison he went to, Morris was transferred to Alcatraz, where he and the 3 other escapees, the brothers, John and Clarence Anglin, and an inmate who occupied the adjacent cell to Morris, Alan West, devised their plan.
I figured the cell block's really getting old. The moist air is corroding the concrete. And the salt is rusting the metal. I took a nail clipper. I was digging around the grill at the back of the cell. I think with some work I could dig that grill out of there, enlarge the hole, and get into the utility corridor, which leads to the top of the cell block, and maybe out on the roof.
How we hide the hole while we're working on it?
Well, we can tear the heads out of magazines. No one will miss those, and make cardboard out of them. Paint grills on that and put it back in the hole. Maybe partially obscure it with a towel or bathrobe or whatever. I've ordered an accordion, which I'm going to put in front of my hole.
Suppose we make it out of the cell house. They'll know we're going at the next count.
We'll leave at night. That way they won't know till the morning. We're going to have to make some dummy heads. Make them out of plaster, cardboard, or whatever. Put them in the bunks, and the guards won't know.
It began in a cell much like this one, except for one difference. Their cell had a hole behind the air vent chiseled out by sharpened spoons. It took Frank and John months to carve out the small ventilation shaft. While Frank and John were working on getting their prospective vents opened, West was working on the transportation, a raft constructed out of raincoats, glued together with glue stolen from the glove shop. The final piece of the puzzle was left in the hands of Clarence Anglin, the most infamous piece of the Alcatraz escape, the dummy heads. Crude but lifelike, the heads were made out of soap, toilet paper, and real human hair stolen from the prison barber. At 9:30 p.m. sharp, a prison count was conducted. The next count was not until 12 a.m. The heads were used to not evade the next prisoner count, but to dupe any passing guards. With everything in place, at 9:30 p.m. on June 11, 1962, Frank Lee Morris gave the word to the other escapees. Once they finally made it to the top of the roof, they were faced with a 100-foot run along the top of the main cell house, trying to evade guards. On the other side, they were faced with a 50-foot drop on which they had to shimmy down piping. After that, all we have is theories as to what happened to Frank Lee Morris, Clarence Anglin, and John Anglin. One of the most famous Alcatraz theories comes from, of course, the Mythbusters. This is their conclusion.
I think it's entirely possible that they made it. Again, I think the most damning evidence that they didn't is the fact that no one's heard from them since.
Unless they find any specific evidence that these guys, lived happily ever after or something after they got ashore, we won't know whether it was true or not. But we know that it could have been done, which is cool.
Another more recent theory comes to us from Fox News. A group of Dutch hydraulic experts recently decided to take a crack at the prison break while they were modeling San Francisco Bay to study flood risk and the impact of sea level rise. The scientists simulated dozens of possible routes the inmates could have taken on the night of their escape. This is their conclusion. If the three men left Alcatraz any earlier than 11:30 p.m., they would have been swept out to sea by strong currents, Bart and his colleagues found. But if the prisoners set off on their raft between 11:30 and midnight, it is likely that they could have landed just north of the Golden Gate Bridge at Horseshoe Bay. The models also showed that any debris after the landing might have drifted toward Angel Island, north of Alcatraz, which is where the FBI found a paddle and some personal items linked to the men.